Alright, what's up, guys? I'm going to be recapping every single trade that I took this week with my Twitter post. I made around 24 RR this week, trading metals and indices. So first, we're going to run through metals Monday to Friday, and then I'm going to run through indices Monday to Friday because I took less trades on indices. I think I took like a total of 4 trades on indices this week, but I took the bulk of my trades this week was in metals. So let's begin. So, uh, coming into the week on Friday, what I am looking for is that we're going to be running through this with my thought process, with what I am seeing, what I am looking for, and why I took each trade, and I'm going to show the losses as well. So I'm going to show you guys the logic behind my losses. So coming into the week here, we saw Friday did just the brutal drop, right? We all know that the drop on. Let me switch to gold. So we all know the drop on indices that was caused last Friday. So when you're coming into Monday and you're framing your bias for the day, the first thing you should be looking for is previous day's high and previous day's low. So when you look at where we are opening up right here, what can you target? Obviously, you cannot expect it to target this high or this high simply because it is just too far away. So the very, very logical thing and the relevant and realistic target that you have is previous day's low. So whenever you have an expansion in such direction with speed like this, typically it's going to continue in the direction until the previous high or low is taken. So like, see, when you have this strong candle right here, previous day high will almost always be taken as the first target for the day. Or if we retrace down here, then this is a very realistic target, assuming that we are bullish. So we're coming into the day, and we're we're bearish, right? We want to see previous day's low be taken. Let me remove some of these drawings. So if you want to have a continuation, what is the continuation sequence that we use? We mark out the high and the low of the daily candle, right? And you take 50% of that, and then you refine it, and you look for key levels in below the EQ of the range if you want to have a small wick or a shallow retracement, because we don't want price to just go higher and then go lower, right? So when you refine that to the 4 hour, let me put the thing again. So when we refine this to the 4 hour, what we have, am I recording? I am. So what we have is we have this gap, and realistically, if we are going to go lower, this is the only gap we're going to continue from, seeing that there is no other relevant high, and you have this gap, but I don't care about this gap because it is way too high in the range, and we are only focusing on recent relevant levels. So we have this gap that we can continue from. So that is so we have our target and we have our means to go to the target. So what we are looking for here is we look for open, high, and then low, right? So that's exactly what we get. So if I play the next 4 hour candle, we gap lower, and we actually don't take the gap, but on silver, we do, as you can see. That's one thing about if you want to look for continuations, you look for divergences, cracking correlation inside the levels that you expect price to reverse from. And in this case, we have SMT with the gap. So that is your first stage SMT. And then when you drop down to the 15-minute, we actually have a 2-stage cracking correlation, which is essentially an SMT confirmed with a PSP, a precision swing point. Like, this isn't obvious where I'll show the PSP for now. As you can see, this candle closed bearish, right? While this candle closed bullish. So the asset that took the gap closed bullish, while this one that didn't take the gap closed bearish. Now there is no strength switch here, right? So ideally in a perfect world where this gets taken, this one closes bullish and this one closes bearish, signifying the strength switch, because the asset that took the high is now bearish, but the asset that didn't take the high is bullish. So it is allowing silver to catch up, meaning they'll both take the low. But it's fine if there's no strength switch, because typically that means that the strength switch will happen later on in the move and not at the highest or at the point of reversal of the move. But for now, this two stage kind of confirms the reversal, and we also have a candle two closure right here, as you can see. And so from this point, we don't really want price going back higher, right? So you confirm this candle two closure with a CSD, which is right here. So ideally, you take this CSD lower, because this is your CSD, right? So ideally, you take this candle close, but I wasn't in the charts when this happened. I was sleeping, so I took this instead. I took this propulsion block, and I have my stop right here at the candle high. I think it was right there. And then I had to TP down here. Yeah, my stop was here because it was of a 2.5 hour trade. I could only go for 750 ticks in this case, because I was taking it on my top step evals. On my I bought 5 top step evals and I was taking them, so I can only realistically go for 750 ticks, because I was in with 2 micros. So I full TP'd here at 2.5R, but it was but if I was taking this on a funded, I would be targeting this low, right? Because that is that was previous day's low, our complete objective. Now I don't have any screenshots for this because TradeZella doesn't let Top Step X connect to TradeZella for some reason. So for this trade and my next trade, I'm going to be displaying only the two. I can't have any proof of that, but if you check my Twitter, I have screenshots of the executions when it happened. So that is my first trade. That is a 2.5R. Now moving on to the second trade. Remember how I mentioned that a strength switch is likely to happen after the move, right? Like after the reversal. If there is no strength switch here, don't worry. It's going to present itself later on in the move. Probably in a continuation or something. And when that happens, then you can take it because it is a very high probable sequence. So here we have a lagging asset trade. So when we expand lower, we create this gap, right? See this gap. And if you look left, if we want to go continue lower, this is the only gap you could continue from. There is no other relevant level other than this high. But if price is going to go back up to this high, then it's likely going to consolidate or probably going to take this gap, and then it's not going to expand yet. It's probably going to do it later in the day, probably like the 6 a.m. open or maybe the 2 a.m. open. So ideally, you want to see reaction of this gap. So after you frame your target, which is these low resistance liquidity, and now you have your means to the target, and we have a strength switch over here, which is a gap fill paired with a PSP and an SMT, right? So at first you have this swing point, which is bullish, and then if you look here, this one is bearish. The gold took the high, silver did not take the high, and so with this logic, what's it called? With this logic, right? You're trading the lagging asset. As you can see, gold, it was weaker the whole move, right? It was stronger to the downside, but now it is filling the gap, while on silver, it's not really taking the high that created the gap. So see, this is the gap high on silver. I mean on gold, right? And silver didn't take it, being that silver was previously the weaker asset. Now this is your strength switch where gold takes the low first and silver doesn't take the gap that was formed. So when you have this PSP, ideally you take silver here, but I took gold because I didn't want to risk like 5k on my account, but this was still technically valid given that there was a strength switch and there was a target lower. But the protocol here is that you would TP when silver takes the low. However, I just wanted to scalp this for a trading day, So I simply if you look at my my Twitter, I posted a screenshot where I took this and I TP'd like right around 2R right here, because it is again the same framework as my last trade, except this trade with a strength switch where it drops lower, retraces, creates a propulsion block, and then this is where I enter. And let me see if I can pull up a screenshot of that trade so I can show you guys. Hold on. Yeah, I took this one. So I took this. As you can see, these are my executions. This was on the 1 minute, so we're gonna go into the 1 minute. I entered off of a gap, right, which is right around here, and then I simply TP'd at the lows. So that was everything I took on Monday, right? We got some consolidation, but eventually it did hit my TP, which was, I think, yeah, I entered that gap, stop above here, and I went for 2R, or yeah, I remember it was this low. So I took that, went in with 2 micros again. I had to CP here because I only needed a trading day. And so that was the only trades that I took on Monday. I only took 2 in Asia because I had classes, so I can't really watch until the New York, and then we didn't really get anything in New York. So that was everything for me on Monday. So moving on to Tuesday, let's just skip over to Tuesday. So we're heading on into Tuesday, right? Yeah, so when we're entering into Tuesday, no, this is Tuesday. When we're entering into Tuesday, again, same protocol as before. You want to look at the previous day high and the previous day low. In this case, we do have a range, a smaller range that followed the large expansion day. So the thing that you can frame here is you can frame either previous day's high or previous day's low. But if you want to get to either, ideally one has to be swept. So if you want to go to the previous day's low, ideally Tuesday sweeps previous day's high and then goes lower. Or if you want to retrace back into the gap, then we're probably going to bounce off of EQ of the wick of either assets. But ideally you take silver because it is the one that actually closed inside the range. Well, if you look at gold, it's slightly closed below the previous day's low. So heading into the day, my first trade came into here. I came into the charts right around before it expanded higher, right there. And now, so if my target is going to be the daily gap or the previous day's high, I want to see expansion higher. And we do get that here. So we open up, we expand higher, which you can't really take any opportunities here unless you want to look at the PM's price action. And so when we expand, we have this 90-minute gap, right? We form this 90-minute gap that both assets actually tapped into. So the protocol here is that if there is no SMT, ideally you look for an SMT with the gap, right? But if there is no SMT with the gap, then you look for SMT inside the gap, which is basically if both assets hit the gap, then you're going to look for a divergence. Ideally, like GC takes this low, silver doesn't, and then it's confirmed with the PSP on the lower time frame or something. So this was my first this was my first trade that I took here, which was the fact that we have this on gold, this 2-stage SMT with a strength switch, which unfortunately I got swept out on. So if you look at this is the 90-minute gap low, right? So this is the low that forms the gap, and this is your 2-stage SMT. So first we have this spaced out SMT between silver and gold, where gold is the one that takes this gap, takes the 90-minute gap, and then at this time when we were right around here, silver hasn't already taken the gap. So currently you have an SMT with the gap, which was confirmed with a candle SMT right here, whereas you can see gold doesn't take out this low, while silver takes out the low, actually expands past it and taps the gap. So that is your strength switch, where the gold, the weaker asset that takes the gap first, actually doesn't take out the low that forms right after it, and then silver, the one that didn't take the gap, swept the low and expanded past it into the gap. So I refined this down into the lower time frame, and when this signature appeared, which was right around here, um, an SMT already happened here. I simply took this close. I took this CSD, into which I got stopped. Obviously, I was targeting this high, the daily gap high, and then I got stopped right there, and then so that is a loss for a negative 1R. I actually got stopped pretty quickly on that one. Now, I wouldn't really say there was anything wrong with that loss that I took. It was unfortunate, but silver, I got stopped out because silver just flat out refused to expand higher, and it wanted this gap instead. But we reversed right after that, right? So now this is confirmed with a 30-minute. Now we're still concerning this 90-minute gap. We're still playing around it because if you look at the framework right here, right? If we want to continue higher into this daily gap, you don't really want price just going lower, like sweeping out this low and then going higher, right? You don't really want that. That's way too deep of a retracement. And if it goes lower here, the more ideal scenario would be a failure to manipulate, like a close below, and then we just drop lower into this previous day's low. So if you want to continue higher, you want to use this gap. This is the only gap that you're going to use. And I'm using the 90-minute because it is cleaner than the hourly. Because if you look at the hourly, it's an hourly gap that is formed with like the low of two candles. I'm pretty sure this one swept the low, but like it was like a 1-6 sweep, so I don't really like it. So I'm using 90-minute for cleaner framework here. So we're still playing around this gap because if we are to continue higher, you would only this gap is the only thing we can continue from. There's no other levels, right? This is a relevant level. So after I got stopped out, I just took this this signature, where if you look at the 30-minute gap, right, as you can see, gold doesn't sweep the gap and it closes bullish, and the silver takes the gap and it closed bearish, which was my confirmation to continue higher, because it's the same framework as my Monday trade where it was here, right? Yeah. So this asset doesn't take the gap and close bearish, confirming that it is the overall weaker pair. Now we're getting that here again, where this asset doesn't take the gap and close bullish, so it's confirming that GC is the overall stronger asset. And so after we get that PSP, I just looked for a CSD, right? And I entered right at this CSD. In the 3-minute. Yeah, so I entered right at this close, and I have my stop here. And then, yeah, so I have my stop right there. After the 2130 candle closes, right, I just entered right at the close of the 30-minute candle. I was setting my stop here. I don't think this is a good stop, simply because this V shape right here is kind of large, and ideally, if you want to take something like this, you take something like this, like lower in the range. But I was confirming the PSP since the 2130 30-minute candle is bullish, and I want to confirm the SMT with the PSP, and I can't do that until the candle closes, so I had to wait for the candle to close. So when this closed, this is way too high of a stop for me, simply because when you have a V shape like this that closes far above, it's typically going to get retracements. So I set my stop right here, and I set my TP here. My having a big stop is fine because I still get 3R. As you can see, this trade actually did play out, but I took this on micros, and if you look at the micros, see my stop is at the 3-minute 2151 3-minute candle low, the body low, but I took that instead on micros, right? I took the same on micros, and I had my stop here, and I got wigged out before wait, I pressed it, my bad. So I got wigged out before price eventually runs to my direction. So as you can see, hey, let me zoom out a bit so it's faster. So yeah, I got stopped before. I just got micro SMT contract SMT before the move happened, and yeah, so that was unfortunate. It could have been like a 3-hour win. Given that I was in class, it would be a full 3-hour because I wouldn't be able to partial. Anyway, so I'm just going to quickly show my executions for this trade and the previous trade because I forgot to show it. So this is the executions for this one. As you can see, this is my Apex account. So I took it here, got stopped right here, right at this, and then it just went to my direction. And then if I want to show my other trade, my previous one, I'll show it to you guys. Hold on. It was this one, right? So I entered at the open at the close of the 3-minute, and I just got stopped out at the low. I didn't want to set my stop here. So that is my execution for 2 trades, for the 2 of the trades on Tuesday, which was my loss. And then afterwards, I took NQ, but I'll show indices later. But for gold, that is everything that I took on Tuesday. The rest I took on indices. Now, we're moving into Wednesday, right? So I actually caught the high of day on Wednesday. So let's just come to the charts. My trade on Wednesday was right around London, right? So yeah, let's skip to London. Or was London? Wednesday. Yeah, next candle should be it. Okay, so the way I am framing this trade, the way I'm looking at this trade, if I want to trade this lower, so why do I want to trade this lower? First of all, concerning the daily bias thing that I mentioned earlier on in the video, where you want to look at previous day's high and lows. And when you look at the previous day high, this is the only relevant level that we have. Like, if you look past the previous day's high, there is nothing to target. There's nothing relevant to target, given that the next high is this far. So ideally, you either want to target previous day's high, or you want to do a short off of previous day's high back into the range. So it's either going to be internal to external, or it's going to be external back to internal. So that's the only thing that you could take this day, given the range that we have. So if you look here, we have, first off, we have this high that we do not have an SMT on, and this was my target during the trade, this candle, this gap, right? And so when I'm confirming what caps off the retracement, given that it's just expanding and you don't really have a key level to associate it with, I'm just looking for a 2-stage here to confirm the high with a with an expansion lower. And so this is a bit shallow, and that is why I don't really consider this a win. But I got I'm pretty sure I got like 3R off of this as well. And so it's just basically this. It's a 2-stage confirmed by PSP and a strength switch. So first of all, you have this PSP, this 230 candle, closed bearish, and here it closed bullish, right? Let me drink some water. Okay, so this one closed bearish. Now, given the circumstances and where we are right now with gold and silver, because this closed bearish and this closed bullish, you would expect silver to take the high instead of gold. So you expect gold to just go lower and silver to sweep the high and then go lower, which was actually a strength switch now, because the asset that closed bearish, that should be weaker, swept the high, while the asset that closed bullish, which should be stronger, didn't sweep out the high. And so that was a good confirmation. But if you wanted another confirmation, you have this, where two-stage consecutive candle SMT. But I didn't use that. I just saw this, but I wanted to see a kind of a retracement lower. No, not retracement, an expansion lower, a CSD lower to confirm it. And so we got this, and I am comfortable setting my stop up here, simply because if I am going to target the gap low, which was here, I could easily still get like 3R from this trade. But as you can see, this is why this win was lucky, because I set my stop up here on gold, and gold took the high. As you can see, it would have swept me again and went lower to my way. But since I entered again on micros, I entered here. Micros did not stop me out, so that's why it was a lucky win. And because when I take my trades, I want them to just be clean moves lower. I don't want it to just kind of jerk off, almost take my stop and then go lower. Ideally, it just goes lower, but when I get stopped out, I typically just get ran through, or I get wicked out or something like that. And so I got this. I entered this instead with, and as you can see, it hit my TP. And I'm gonna show my executions here as well. Give me a sec. Let me just pull it up on Zella. Right here. So, as you can see, this was my entry. I have my stop up there, and I was TPing down here, right? So that was I was partialing here at this first relevant low, but my ultimate TP was this 4-hour gap, as you can see. Yeah, the 4-hour gap. That was my final TP. And so, moving on now. So moving on. After I got that win, my next trade was an NQ, but again, I'm only going to be showing metals for this now. And so, this is the next trade that I took. It was on New York. It was during New York. So let's move on to New York. Let me skip a bit to New York. So this was my short. Clean this up for a bit now. This was my short right here, I believe. Yep. So with silver, we still do have lower objectives, because we have this low resistance liquidity on silver, right? So this was a 1-hour win, simply. So if you look at the 4-hour first, it's a two-stage on the 4-hour, where if you look at this closed bearish, but it doesn't take out the high, while on silver it closed bullish, but it swept the high. So just refining that to the lower time frame, when you see that that two-stage right there, ideally you could just enter if you see like some 15-minute signature. But I wanted to refine it lower, so I wanted to confirm it with like a lower time frame strength switch as well. So as you can see, the candle that swept out the high was 7 a.m. here. And if you look at gold's 7 a.m. candle, it is right here. So we do get that smaller SMT strength switch, where silver, the stronger asset to the upside previously, doesn't sweep out this high, while gold swept out this high. That is a strength switch, because it was previously weaker before. It shouldn't sweep out the high, but it did. So that is your strength switch right there. And when I saw this, hold on, where's my entry? Let me check Zella. Yeah, when I saw the 751 candle close down here, I just entered with my stop up here, and I was targeting this low. But I got out at around 2R, I believe. So yeah, that was my trade with that CSD. And I got out. I partialed at around 2R, but yeah, I was recording that time. I didn't notice that it went 2R, so I partialed around here, and then I got trailed out. So that was a 1-hour win for me. Maybe half an hour, because I partialed a little higher, but it was here. I'll show the executions as well. Give me one sec. Let me pull up the executions. Alright, it got cut out, so I just have to merge the two for some reason. So here is my Zella trade, right? I have this 3 minute closure, and then I TP'd here, and I got a stopped out at break even. Anyway, so let's just move on to the next trade that I took. So that was the last trade that I took for metals, since I didn't get to catch shorts because I wasn't thinking to look at it, and I just made I think I made like 8K this day. I couldn't really make more in my Apex account. I do not want to make a lot of money for the consistency, just to withdraw like 3K. But I believe that this went lower, so you could have taken something like that, but I don't really care about it, really. So we're moving on now to Thursday. Now on Thursday, the Apex banned metals, which was it was just bullshit, right? Because I can't really trade metals on Apex anymore, so I'm just gonna go go on here. So when you're opening up the day on gold, right? So you're opening up here. So now entering Thursday, what expectation do you have? So as you can see, Wednesday closed back inside the range on both assets, which is good. Now we could sweep out the high. Again, this is essentially the same framework, right? Where you have either IRL, either internal to external, right? Internal to external, or you could get a sweep here and then go lower, or it could play out as a continuation below EQ of this range and then go lower. So that is your scenarios there. So it all comes down to refinement. So when you refine this, there you have this gap, right? And if you're going to continue lower, this gap is the only thing you could continue from, right? You have this gap, and this gap's high is this on silver. And so if you want to continue lower, you want to look for divergences, a two-stage inside this gap. So that is exactly what we get. We get a strength switch, right? Where GC takes the gap, while silver doesn't take the high that created gold's gap, which was confirmed with a smaller SMT to kind of confirm it, as you can see there. Now silver, that didn't take out the high, swept the previous hourly high, while gold, the one that took the gap, doesn't sweep that. And so ideally you could catch this on either asset. Like you could take this CSD, or you could take this CSD, right? It doesn't really matter. You could take the 5 minute CSD. It doesn't really matter because you're gonna get a lot of RR anyways. Given that you're catching the high of day, you're expecting to catch the high of day. You could potentially hold that down here, but I wasn't awake. I wasn't on the charts for that, so I just traded the continuation, which was right here. The 15 minute. If you look at the 15 minute, we have this 15 minute SMT fill between gold and silver, and it was actually kind of a double sweep for gold, which is lower probability. That's why I kind of didn't like it, but at the same time, it all comes down to how it delivers. So when we got that SMT and it's not reversing, it's just going to be an AMD reversal, right? Where if it sweeps a high, it ranges for a bit. You're expecting price to do a resweep and then go lower. And so for me, that was valid. So I just took gold here, and then I have my stop at the high, and then I was targeting. Initially, I was only targeting 2R for this trade, again because of consistency on my Apex account. Since I risk I don't really want to make a lot for the consistency, given that I'm not gonna withdraw everything in one go. So I'm risking about 1K here, and my target was only to make like 2K or something. So I TP'd right around here, but ideally, right, you hold it to the lows. But I wasn't really expecting price to go to the lows on the same kind of day, or same kind of candle. I didn't really expect this. You can't anticipate this. So I was only targeting about EQ of the range as well, which is right around there. And that's where I TP'd. right? And this was my execution. I'll show my executions in a bit. All right, so these are my executions for gold. I took this 3-minute CST. I took this 3-minute CST. I got a really good fill actually. As you can see, it wasn't a candle close. I got a good fill, and then I took my first partial here and my second partial at this, and my second TP at this low. So that is my gold trade. And then right after that, you have a lagging asset trade. So let me go ahead and pull up the notion for that. So in this move lower, right, you have this strength switch, lagging asset trade. So again, what is the ultimate draw here? The draw is this low, right? Because that is a relevant low. There's nothing else to the left of it, as you can see. Even if you look at the 1 hour, there's nothing to the left of it. So this is a very, very obvious draw for today, for this session. And you have this SMT fill strength switch. As you can see, gold SMT filled earlier, right? But now it's an SMT fill again, but this time it is the other way around, with the lagging asset exception. Because if you look at our draw, this is our draw in silver. Silver already took out this low, right? And after it took out the low, obviously it took out the low first, so it has to be weaker. But because we have this SMT fill strength switch where gold is not filling the gap, while the asset that took the low is filling the gap, that is your strength switch. And that is basically gold telling you that it is also going down to this low. So if you look there, you have the SMT fill, and I entered off of this 3-minute close. I have my stop up here, and I have my TP down here for about a 3.7 R. That was my lagging asset shorts. So I'm gonna show the executions on that as well. Let me pull it up right here. So as you can see, I took this close. I actually got a pretty bad fill in this one. So I took here, stop up there, and my first partial was when my position was about to be 2R if I'm calculating from up here, and then my last TP was down here at the low. The partial was kind of useless in my opinion, but I wanted to just partial and go break even, since that's kind of my system that I'm using to ensure that I'm not really putting myself up to risk when it is unnecessary. Because if it goes higher and goes to my break-even point, then I would rather re-enter and get better conditions for my trade. And so after that lagging asset, I took another later in the day, which was right around here. I took another 2R right at this New York, I believe it was New York. So let's go ahead and fast forward to that, which was right around 6 a.m. Yeah, it was at 6 a.m. So let's fast forward to 6 a.m. Yeah, it was right around here. Okay. So looking at this, looking at the intraday price action, right, we have this gap. And based off of what I mentioned earlier, if you want to continue lower, this gap is where you want to continue from. That's the only gap you can continue from. So, and this is the target for silver right there. So if you want to continue from this gap, you want to look for an SMT with the gap or inside the gap. And in this case, we do not get an SMT with the gap. As you can see, both assets took that high. But we do have a PSP where silver, let me check that. Yeah, silver closed bullish, gold closed bearish. And so you're basically looking at just confirming it now with the next candle open. So since gold is the one that closed bearish, it is currently the weaker asset, right? Which was confirmed with this 2-stage right here. And it was right around here, I believe. Yep. So gold was bearish, and then we continue lower, we expand lower. You can't really take anything here. There was no nothing that filled the gap. You could look at the gold euro, gold GBP, silver euro, silver GBP, but I don't really care about it that much. This was your draw, and you have this 30-minute gap. Again, if you want to continue lower, this is the only gap we could continue from. Excuse me. So you want to look for divergences again with this gap or inside this gap. As you can see, the gap that created the high was 730, which wasn't which was confirmed here with an SMT fill and a PSP. As you can see, the asset that created the gap closed bearish, this closed bullish, but you do have that strength switch where, of course, this closed bullish, you would expect it to take the high. However, this one is the one that closed bearish, so you wouldn't expect this to take the high, but since this one was the one that swept the high, silver was the one that swept the high, you would expect gold to be the weaker asset with the strength switch now. So I just took this lower. Now ideally you want to take this CSD lower and take it to the lows for a 2R, but I was a bit later in the trade, so I just decided to take something around this close. I front ran this close because yeah, and so I was only expecting to get a 2R out of this trade because I was in class and I just really wanted to get out. So I just scalped this for about a 2R right here. As you can see, I just wanted to get out as quickly as possible because I was in class, right, and we were having an exam, so I just wanted to get out of the trade as soon as possible. So I just took the lowest possible risk I could, but it was definitely a more risky play. That is more discretionary than anything. It is not mechanical, but if you want to take a trade here with the exact same framework, you would have to take this 5-minute or the 3-minute close. As you can see, it delivers as well to the lows. Silver delivers to the lows. Ideally, you take silver here, just because it is the weaker asset, and then you take that high, and then you take it to the lows for a 3R. As you can see, it did CSD lower. But yeah, I'm gonna go and show my executions for this one now. Give me a sec. Yeah, so these are my executions for this trade. Where is it, bro? All right, there we go. So this is my trade. I entered right around here, and I just exited there. It wasn't even a 2R actually. It was just a 1R. I didn't even notice, but that was a 1R on silver. Now moving on, I did take silver on later in the day, which was let me just go check the time for that. Yeah, I took it around 8 on here. So I took this on silver. Yep. Before that, before this trade actually, the silver trade came first. That was my bad. It's essentially, it actually had the same framework with the 30-minute. I mean the 15-minute. Right. It's an SMT fill where gold closes bullish and takes the gap. Silver closes bearish, doesn't take the gap. This is a 2-stage continuation sequence, very, very high probable sequence. You're just looking to trade the continuation here, right? So when I was in silver, the micros. So as soon as the micros close lower and makes a CSD here, I take this trade, and I was targeting 2R right there. I didn't want to take it to the low because this was on an eval. I had to TP because of consistency. As you can see, it hits my TP, and then it consolidates for a bit, creates another 2-stage continuation, and then it drops eventually. Now I don't have executions for this one because this was again on Top Step, but I have this. Right, I'll just show the notion. I have this. This is the only proof that I have for that execution, given that I don't really have given that I don't have Top Step connected to TradeZella because they don't allow Top Step connection. So that was Thursday. Now going into Friday, I took one last trade on Friday. I'll just not gonna go into replay to show you guys. So looking at the 6 hour here, you have the 6-minute gap fill on silver. This is a TGIF day where it just trades back into the range. And so you do have this missed trade on gold, which if you look here, you have that first SMT. Now you confirm that SMT with a strength switch ideally. So as you can see, silver was the one that swept the low. However, silver created a gap, and gold, we had a gap fill for gold on that one, right? So we have that gap fill. So that is your strength switch. Now dropping down to the lower time frames, right? You have this CST right up there, and you're just targeting back into the range, and so you're gonna look for a relevant level inside the range, which is probably you could TP here at these equal highs, but I missed that because I was working. And so the other opportunity that you have here is with this 6-hour SMT. If you look, we have a gap in the 6-hour there, and we have a gap fill. So that's the gap fill right there. And as you can see, if you want to confirm that with a 90-minute, you have a 2-stage, which is a large range SMT confirmed by a smaller range SMT right there. So as you can see, you have silver sweeping out the high after it didn't sweep, and then you have gold not sweeping the high after it swept. And so I just dropped down to the lower time frame here on silver after this signature, and I took this lower. Again, this is on Top Step. I don't have any trade executions on Top Step. On the XFA, they don't have trade executions. Ideally, this trade went to my 3R, but I didn't really TP. I don't know why I had 2 cons. I didn't TP. I wanted to hold it to this low because the funded has no consistency, so I could hold it for however long I want. I don't have to TP because of consistency, but I didn't TP, and ideally, like, because of this kind of sluggish PA, you're not expecting it to go to this low, only to the EQ. And the thing is, when you look at the daily profile, it doesn't have to go that low, right? You have the weekly profile is completed. We already had the TGIF Friday trade back into the range, while Monday, while the intraday profile already kind of retraced here. As you can see, it doesn't really have to take any of the lows since it has no incentive to go lower. This trade would be high probability if it was an expansion. It was a downside expansion day, right? So that is why this trade was kind of low probability, and I should have taken 1 micro out, but that's fine. So that was my only thing on metals for Friday. So let's move on to indices. So moving on to indices, why is that there? Okay. So I took NQ on Tuesday, so let's go check out Tuesday. There was Tuesday. So again, coming into Tuesday, because we have this protected high at the highs over here, trading into this high is kind of a stretch. So the only thing that you're expecting after Monday's close was, again, as I mentioned before, in metals, you have previous day's high, or you could take previous day's high down into the lows. But ultimately, previous day's high is the target that you have, right? So we open up here, and what time was my trade? It was around 6 a.m. open. So let's fast forward to 6 a.m. Yep, there we go. Okay, so with this trade, I wanted YM to take the highs. For NQ, you can't really expect NQ to take the highs because this is a protected swing. It's going to struggle a lot more when it comes to framing this. But I wanted YM to trade to the highs. But you can't expect NQ to trade to the highs in the same day after when it has a protected swing like that. So if you were to go bullish here, ideally you take YM, right? But I took NQ, and I'll show you guys why. So first off, we have this you have this SMT on the 4 hour, right? Where is it? Where is it? Yep. So you have this SMT on the 4 hour where YM takes out this gap, while NQ doesn't take out the gap, as you can see. So given that it also took out this low, this NQ's low, you have this SMT first. Now you want to kind of confirm it with a. Alright, so we're focusing on the gap actually. Yeah. The gap. Yep. Alright, so this was my framework. Alright, my bad. I just had to remember it. So that was the framework right there. On the 30-minute, it was this, where this is irrelevant low right now for NQ. So what YM did was YM swept this low on NQ. So you have this. And then it closed bearish. So now this is the ideal scenario that I was talking about with the strength switch, where the asset that swept the low closes bullish, while the asset that didn't sweep closes bearish. This is your strength switch, and ideally you take YM here. But I didn't want to take YM because it's a sloppy framework, and I wasn't on the charts as well. But NQ was NQ did sweep out this low. Well, YM doesn't, so you have like a two-stage with confirmed PSP, and then confirms it again with a sweep. And so when you have this, when you have this CSD, I actually dropped down to the 1 minute here, and yeah, that's why I'm not trading YM. Like, there's no volume in this. So when you have this CSD on NQ, I just took it, stopped below here, the candle, the order block, and I was targeting this range high, right? And I actually added more when we had this 3-minute closure. I added more, and I got trailed out here. I believe, yeah, it went higher afterwards, and then it trailed me out right there, I believe. I'm gonna show you guys the executions again. This was the executions for that trade. I entered here, the 1 minute close, and then when the 3-minute closed, I entered here, and I got trailed out right there. I wanted this high. You can't really anticipate this low because YM had its highs open. So if you look here on the daily, YM had these highs, so I wanted YM to take these highs. I was gonna TP when YM took the highs, or simply the range high, this intraday high, right? But we didn't get that, and we got trailed out, and it just went lower for some reason. You can't really trade this, in my opinion. You could, but for me, I found no setups on there. And so after that, I did try to I did short RTY afterwards, which was here, looking at the correlation between RTY and YM. As you can see, YM here swept out previous day's high. YM swept out this high already. Like this high on YM, that on RTY that we have, YM swept that, and then as you can see, we have that large range SMT confirmed with a smaller range SMT, where let me mark out the SMT here. Right, so if you look at the candle that swept out the high, it was 930, and then we have that strength switch where RTY, the asset that didn't sweep the high, swept the candle high afterwards, while the asset that swept the high didn't sweep the high. Oops. So now, after that strength switch, I just wanted to scalp it all the way to the lows down here, because I didn't really expect YM to go higher, simply because when you look at this PA on 930, NQ was already down here. And that's why I was expecting YM to follow, go lower as well, since Since NQ, the logic behind here is that since NQ does not want to manipulate the lows to go higher, then chances are YM is going to take the lows as well because of a lagging asset trade. But I shorted RTY here on this 5-minute order block. Had my limit there. And I had my stop at this 3-minute candle high, and I was targeting the lows for a 2R, which I got trailed out here. I think it was around here, but I'll show you guys the executions again. RTY. It was a half R loss. Unfortunate. Pretty unfortunate. I cannot take the tab. Yep. Yeah, I trailed it to that high. So it was a half R loss on RTY. But yeah, anyways, now we have this, now I took YM as a break even here, right? So I took YM here afterwards. Yeah, I was just reviewing what I took. And I tried to long YM here afterwards because NQ was, it got a higher break even. So NQ, where was it? Yeah, I tried to long YM right here. Right, because we did get the recording cut off for some reason, but afterwards, after my my RTY loss, I took this on NQ simply because we're down here, right? And I wanted to. This was my mistake because I saw this strength switch on NQ where NQ was suddenly stronger and YM was weaker, right? And so I saw this, and I wanted YM to still go to the highs since it still has those these fuck ass highs that we have right up there. And so I took this CSD higher, and then I just closed it because it was pretty shit. Right, I just closed it right here when it was consolidating. But this should have been a lagging asset trade where, but you can't really confirm a lagging asset with the divergence in the lows. If you're bearish, ideally you get a divergence at the highs, but we didn't really get an SMT fill, so I could not really short this as a lagging asset. Because as you can see, there was really nothing other, like unless you want to consider like this sweep or something. But yeah, you could probably take something that to the lows, right, lower. But like this is so sloppy. You don't want to take this. I didn't want to take this, so I just closed my YM position for like a 0.2R loss or something. It's a very small loss because I didn't really like the PA that was being offered. And then that was my only trade on Tuesday. I had like just the trail out on NQ. Now, moving on to Wednesday, my NQ shorts. Let's go into Wednesday. Yeah, it was right around here. Yep. Okay, so my framework for this day on NQ. First off, we have this range, right? Again, with what I've been mentioning earlier, if we were to continue lower on NQ, this is the gap that you could continue from. Now, it is just a matter of whether or not YM wants the highs or NQ wants the lows. So you want to confirm that by looking at which divergence is being followed and where we are expanding to. So here we have this 2-stage in the 4-hour, right, where this asset closed bearish, didn't take out the high, this asset closed bullish, and it sweeps the high. And so with that, I just wanted to confirm it with a lower time frame, but we didn't really get any confirmation from that. It was just a sweep of the 4-hour, which is fine. So we swept it around 6:30, right? And you have this. Oh yeah, actually, I did confirm it. You have this strength switch between NQ. So this is your the same framework with my Monday gold trade where the asset that took the gap, that filled the gap, closed bullish. The asset that didn't take the gap or didn't take the high closed bearish. And so we had this displacement lower, which was perfect, right? And then when YM hit this 706 high, which was the gap, I just entered, so I got a fill right around here. Have my stop up there, and then I was targeting this low for a 3.7 hour trade. I wanted to hold this to the lows actually, but I got trailed like right around there, so I didn't really want to hold it longer. But eventually we did get to that low, as you can see. Yeah, we eventually got to that low after a slow grind lower, which was fine. I took this for about, I got trailed out here, but I took some partials down here, so this was around a 3-hour trade. Perfectly catching the high of day here. High of day being confirmed by a divergence. Perfect stuff. Just catching the high of day. And that was my only trade on indices for Wednesday, I believe. Yeah, now I took a loss on YM on Thursday, and I took a break even on NQ on Friday. Okay, so we're gonna recap that. Alright. So my trade was here. Yep, it was here. So if you look at the 90-minute, let me pull up my screenshot so I know what to follow. Okay. So if you look at the 90-minute here, it's a bit tricky, right? But this was the screenshot that I took. If I can paste it. This was the 2-stage that I took on YM. There was a 2-stage present where it was a higher time frame SMT confirmed by a smaller range SMT with the 90-minute, but it broke that here, so I can't really show it on replay. But yeah, you have that forming the low of day, and then in the hourly, you have this sweep of the low on NQ. Now I could take this higher because of the logic where NQ just sweeps its relevant low, so now NQ has nowhere to go lower. And with this, YM is also sweeping its relevant low, and we have these highs that I really wanted to take. And so we had that sweep. Actually, you could take it, could frame it on the 1 hour, where, as you can see here, and then it followed by a sweep, a smaller range sweep. That is your strength switch. You still take YM because it is still closer to the highs, and it still had the profile. And when we had this CST higher, I took this. I my stop down here, and I was trying to catch a trade back up into these highs, and I got stopped immediately. Now the thing here is that the wick was really large, but it was fine for me because my stop was at the low of the current wick that was being traded in. But it was wrong for me to target these highs simply because the highs in YM, we had the SMT with RTY, I believe, or NQ. Was it NQ? Yeah, the high of day was formed with an SMT right there, and you have NQ not taking out that high, right? You have that smaller range SMT, and we're just expanding lower. Now, when you expand lower, we actually failed to manipulate this low. Ideally, you sweep this low and then you go higher, but we did fail to manipulate it. So you can see we're just not consolidating. I wanted to see AMD reversal, but if you are this low in the range, ideally, you could still take a proportion block where after this close through, you wait for it to close again to confirm it, because you still have the enough room for an RR with. So that's just my mistake. And then my stop gets ran through and then it just basically goes lower after that. So that's my only trade on indices on Thursday. Now moving into Friday, which is going to be the last recap of this day, I did take a break even on NQ right here. Yep. So coming into the day, you have this gap, which was the draw, because it is TGIF. And so if you look at the NQ's profile, we have Tuesday high of the week, and then we just expand lower. And then it was very perfect because we sweep this this low on NQ, right? And then we traded higher, and I didn't really want to catch the reversal, so I was looking to trade the continuation on this. And so my framework was that it's just basically a simple SMT fill with a sweep. You have this SMT fill first on YM, and then you have another SMT fill, which was it's not the highest probability double sweep of all time, but I just wanted to take a trade to the highs. So if you look here, my entry was right around this order block after we closed through it, and then I have my stop down here, and I was targeting these highs for around a 6-hour trade. I think I had my stop here because I'm not that brutal, bro. Or maybe this. And then I just got stopped at break even. Right, I have my stop right there at break even. It ran higher. I didn't want to trail my stop here just because I didn't want to put my stop at a 5-minute gap or something. So yeah, I just set it break even. I got hit break even, and I took nothing else for the rest of the week. So that concludes every single trade that I took for this week. Right, that is everything. Break even, the losses, and the logic behind my losses. I didn't get to cover this Miss NQ longs because I have to do something, and so I don't really have time for this. But I could upload a video soon, maybe recapping this. But that is every single trade that I took. If you were to filter my total RR from February 1 to February 7, which is here, I have this kind of calculator. I net about a 24.2 R, but after I looked at my stats on TradeZella, it was more around a 16, 17, 18 R, simply because of the partials that I took and the break evens, but without so I had a gross of about 24.2 R, but my net was around 16, between 16 to 18, considering a 1K to 1.2K risk. So this was probably one of the better weeks of my trading, since my previous weeks I could only probably net around 20 R with a net of like a 10, 12 R per week. But considering that Apex banned metal, I don't think I can do that on my fundeds anymore. But yeah, I hope you guys learned something from this video. I'll be putting it up shortly now. I hope you guys learned something from this, and if you guys have questions, you can just always tag me on Twitter, and I'd be happy to respond to them. So I hope you guys picked up on something on this video. I'm gonna be ending it right here.